Hi everyone, welcome back. Today's video is going to be a time trial and first impressions on the Tarte Shape Tape Hydrating Foundation. Now I have already done one on the matte version, so I will link that down below, but this one is just going to be on the hydrating one. For reference, I am around a MAC NC20. It is the summertime here in Toronto, so I'm leaning a little bit more towards like NC25, I think. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm somewhere in that in-between point between 20 and 25. I consider myself to have relatively normal skin, so my skin gets a little bit oily in the summer and then a little bit dry in the winter. I'm gonna pull my hair back and try 3 of these shades on my face because I'm not sure which one's gonna match. I do have fair light neutral, light neutral, and then light sand. Okay, so this first one is fair light neutral. I do tend to prefer neutral shades of foundation just because, oh, that actually looks pretty good. All right, that might be the one. I prefer neutral because I don't like being too pink and I don't like being too yellow. So I feel like neutral is generally a good balance for me. This next one is light neutral. Okay, on camera I can see that it's a little bit deeper than the fair light one. That was the thing with the matte foundation. I felt like the color range was all over the board. I think my light one was lighter than my fair light one. And this last one is light sand. Okay, those are all really close. Okay, when I'm looking at them on the viewfinder, this one is the fair light neutral, and that's definitely a little bit more yellow. This one here, the light neutral, has a little bit more peach in it. And then the light sand up here, I think it's a little bit more yellow based. I honestly think I'm gonna go with the lightest shade, just because I think that's gonna match me the best. We'll find out. I'll be applying my foundation as per usual with my damp Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge. I haven't primed my face and I won't be powdering or touching up throughout the day either. Tarte says that this is a hypoallergenic luminous finish gel foundation featuring the same complexion perfecting superpowers as their Shape Tape concealer, with an added boost of skin smoothing oil-free hydration. It has buildable coverage with a luminous finish. It also has collagen and hyaluronic acid, which work to hydrate and plump your skin, and it won't crease, cake, or fade. The bottle does come with your standard 30 mils or 1 fluid ounce. So there's the foundation applied. It's actually fuller coverage than I was expecting. With something that's hydrating and supposed to have a luminous finish, I always expect it to be a sheer wash of color. This was, I would say, medium to full. I mean, I've still got freckles showing through, so I guess that is a little bit more medium than it is full. But again, I was not expecting that much coverage, and I did make the same mistake I think I did with the matte foundation. I put too much on my face to begin with. You do not need much with this foundation, so start with a little bit and then build it up. I do feel like the shade is a decently good match. I originally thought it was a little bit too pale, but now that I'm looking at it in comparison with my neck, I think it's pretty close. If it's a little bit too pale, I'll be able to pull it up a little bit with some bronzer. Anyway, I'm gonna go put the rest of my makeup on and I will be right back. There's my makeup fully applied. I didn't really have any issues except for one patch of bronzer kind of stuck a little bit right there. It blended out fine after a little bit of work, but I think it's just because I hadn't let the foundation dry completely. That being said, I don't think it's actually fully dry. Actually, I'm looking at the viewfinder and the finish looks really, really nice, but it's still a little bit tacky to the touch, which always makes me a little bit nervous because I'm worried that it's gonna like slip and slide all over my face. Anyway, I like the way my makeup looks. I think the foundation looks nice, but I need to head to work and we'll find out how it's gonna look at the end of the day. So it's currently 8:09 a.m. I'm going to go to the office and I will be back around roughly 5 o'clock with my final thoughts. All right, I am back. It is currently 5:16 p.m. and I am home from the office. I made it about 2 blocks this morning before I had to throw my hair back in a ponytail because it's quite warm in Toronto. Right now I think it's about 30 degrees Celsius with a humidex around like 37 or 38 degrees. Toronto gets very humid, so we can't just say the regular temperature, we have to say it with humidex because it always feels way hotter than what the temperature actually says. Anyway, so I got to work this morning, and for those unaware, I walk to work. It's a 15-minute walk, and I was quite warm when I got in, so I was really worried that I was going to be super sweaty and that my face would have all slid off because this morning the foundation just hadn't dried down, and I was like, oh, I don't know how that's going to work after a warm walk into the office. Anyway, I looked at my face when I got into the office. It was fine, not as shiny as it is now, but everything was still intact, so I was quite happy. Now, this foundation does have a natural sheen to it, which I quite like, but I think that this might not be the right foundation for me during the summer. I like the appearance of it. In fact, I think my skin looks quite healthy, glowy, and everything I sort of want in a summer look, but I feel like it's a little bit too heavy for my taste. Yes, I did apply a little bit too much this morning, but I've applied other foundations that are sort of in the same gel consistency that this one is, and if I apply too much, it's not usually a problem. My biggest issue all day has been the fact that I have just really wanted to itch my skin, and I have said before that I get really itchy face syndrome with some foundations, and this one is a big culprit for that. I think this foundation may be better suited for me in the colder months, more specifically probably the fall time. So I think potentially for me, the combination of a dewy gel formula foundation that's a little bit on the thick side of things, I mean, this is fuller coverage than I was expecting, is not great in the summertime because it just feels a little bit too heavy. Now, I do love the appearance. I do actually quite like how it looks. So if you're somebody who's quite dry, this might be a good foundation for you during the summertime. Now that I've said my opinions on why I may not necessarily like to wear this during the summer, I have to point out all the good things about this foundation. The first and foremost thing that is shocking to me is that there is no creasing or pilling or clustering with this foundation. I find that incredibly surprising given how glowy and almost like a little bit greasy I look. I'm pretty sure I could just like dab this off with a blotting paper and it would be fine. But generally with foundations that are this dewy, I get clustering. I get like it catching around my nostrils. I get it like creasing in my forehead, and there is none of that, which is hugely impressive. Also, this morning I thought it had actually come off my nose, but I must have been looking in bizarre lighting because it's still there. Usually if it's come off my nose, you'll see a little bit of redness, but I'm not seeing that at all. I mean, I'm pretty glowy, but it's not red, so the foundation has completely stayed on my face. Now, one of the things I have to mention is that the shade range is very wonky, and I'm not just referring to the problems that they had and the drama that ensued when they originally launched this formula and there was not nearly enough shades, especially on the deeper end of the spectrum. That's a whole other problem. What is bizarre to me is that I put on Fairlight Neutral today, which is one of their palest shades, and yet I've actually gotten a decent amount of color so far this summer, and I only think it's strange because I wore a darker shade in the matte foundation, and that was a month ago when my skin was paler. So I would definitely encourage you to go into a store and try a sample out before you pick this up, unless you have easy accessibility to return it and get a new one, because I feel like the shade range doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I had the same problem with the matte range. I couldn't really figure out why one of the darker shades supposedly was lighter than the lighter shade, so make sure you're trying it before you're buying it, because I really don't understand the shade range. Neutral did work for me, which is something that I usually gravitate towards in foundation, so I like that, but I'm still not clear on why I'm considered fair light right now, because I'm light, but I'm not that fair at the moment. So those are all my thoughts on the Tarte Shape Tape Hydrating Foundation. I hope you found this video informative, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!